With silver, we should celebrate the small victories these days. We'll take anything we can get, and we're gonna get it as we explore. Silver is a metal that has frustrated many of us, as I have talked about many times, and I like to try to bring things into perspective with regards to silver. I am bullish on it and positive with silver, more so than ever before, in spite of its price performance that we've been seeing over the last 12, 13 years, as long as this channel has been around and as long as I've been paying attention to the markets. There's something happening today that we're not seeing in the last decade, and I think that is bringing silver to a whole new level of which we're not going to escape in terms of price. And right now, I think we are starting to be at the cusp of another big move and shift and change with silver's price performance. In other words, there's not much they can do to hold it back, as we've seen another milestone reach for silver. That's a small one, but an important one, because of the previous milestone that we have surpassed. It has not been with much fanfare, although I've talked about it here. So what is that? Well, but first, I'm going to tell you about channel sponsor Summit Metals. They have competitive pricing, but even more importantly, they have really upped their game with their service and features over there on their website. So check them out at summitmetals.com, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And elevate your wealth with Summit Metals. Well, let's talk about this milestone. We are seeing a 1 month high of about $33 and change, $33 and above 50 cents. In fact, it was about $33.70 is what it reached just a couple of days ago, as investors' concern over the U.S. fiscal outlook has mounted. And this is putting some pressure on the U.S. dollar and driving more demand for safe haven metals. Yes, believe it or not, silver is a safe haven metal. It still is, even though it trades as a commodity, and we're seeing more and more uses for it. So we're seeing it trade like that commodity, like an industrial metal, and that is something that I think is quite profound as well. And in other words, as I've talked about in a prior video, silver is operating on two fronts, and usually those two fronts work against each other. Its dual role as a precious metal, as a safe haven, as well as an industrial metal. And I think really more and more we're going to see those uses and the demand for silver continuing to increase, even if we head into a recession. And that very well could happen, by the way, very, very soon. A weaker dollar makes dollar price silver more appealing, as we know, and the dollar certainly is weak in terms of comparing to itself. Compared to other currencies, the dollar is performing well, but when you measure the dollar compared to itself, it is not very strong. It is weaker by the day. Folks, that's inflation, and inflation is amongst us even at the Fed's target of 2%. It's still inflation. Silver is the opposite. Compared to other asset classes, it's not doing very well, especially compared to gold, hence why the gold to silver ratio is so high. But when you compare it against itself, it's doing just fine and then some. Now, what we saw also with what's going on in terms of what the government is doing, the U.S. House of Representatives has essentially passed the sweeping tax cut and spending bill. Two things which are going to lead to massive debt. And I'm a big fan of tax cuts, by the way. But what we really need is spending cuts to go along with it. We need to shrink down the size of government. It has gone way too bloated and too big. And I think, honestly, even the most honest of the progressives would have to agree, because it's an unsustainable fiscal path. And what we're seeing with that has occurred is demand for a $16 billion sale of a 20-year U.S. Treasuries was tepid as investors remained cautious after Moody's lowered the U.S. top sovereign rating to AA and 1 instead of AAA. This indicates a low appetite for U.S. assets. And industrial demand for silver is remaining strong. And as I also have talked about, a lot of that demand really is going to be recession resistant or recession proof. And I think especially when we look at mandates from the Paris Climate Accords around the world, as well as continued demand for the metal and science, technology, and other areas that are going to be very much recession resistant. And so therefore, that's a good thing for silver. It really is. And so that's why I believe that silver's price performance is going to fare well through the course of 2025. And I still believe $36 silver will be coming sometime this year. And this demand for silver in the industrial sector is especially noticeable in the solar energy sector. I talked about that recently too. China's wind and solar capacity rose to almost 1,500 gigawatts in the first quarter of this year, according to the latest data. So the milestone is essentially this staying above $33 and maybe even staying above $33.50. If we can hold that for a long enough time, we're going to position ourselves into a scenario where silver very well could start to see a support level that could propel us to $35, which is the next big resistance. And I'm talking a huge resistance. $35 silver is a milestone of which is of such epic proportions that literally many people are saying could mean that silver's price could just explode from there. Now, I'm not one of those that feels that's going to happen just because we reached $35 an ounce. But I think, much like what we saw with $30 an ounce, the longer we see it, the more sustained that support is going to be. And we saw that with $30. Only for a very short amount of time did it fall below that during one of these little market crashes after the inflation or after the tariff scares started to hit. And now we have more uncertainty with regards to tariffs that have propelled silver's price up, but there could very well be the formation of a solidification of a support at this level, especially $33. So in other words, we need to see $33 stay and stick for a while. And if we can see this through the doldrums of the summertime, that is putting us in a good position for silver moving forward. Because again, it's celebrating these milestones, and that's what we're seeing with silver that I think is quite profound. And this is something that I think we're going to need to celebrate some victories here and see where it plays out. Now, there are certainly situations where we could see it pull back through that support and fall back below, but it seems as we've watched the markets move, less and less of that happen. Yes, it does fall. It can fall, even plunge over 2% on a given day, but usually something else comes across in the news that just wipes away those losses fairly quickly. And we're seeing that happen more often than not. Now, I'm recording this video right before the Asian markets open, and who knows what could happen there. It's very unpredictable. There's no question about that. But I do feel that we're starting to see the formation of a new support, and that support is at $33 an ounce. We'll see. But, I believe in stacking silver. I believe in buying it. And one of the ways I buy it here lately on a consistent basis is to grab some Mercury dimes, maybe Standing Liberty quarter or Walking Liberty half dollar from time to time. I love those designs. I think the best. I do think Franklin half dollars and 64 Kennedys are nice as well too. But if you can have the luxury of being able to cherry pick at your local coin shop, why not for the same price of some other types of silver, such as these Mercury dimes? And I believe that silver is going to position itself to be an asset class that is going to be, people are going to take notice in due course. And it may not necessarily be because of just a wild, rapid growth and a breakout that's just going to just soar like crazy, but it could be just because people see an opportunity there compared to gold, and people will make that connection and find an asset class that they can afford to be able to hold and literally hold it in physical form. And that's what it's about, I believe, with silver. You buy in the ETFs, you can do that, that's fine, but you're only buying the exposure to the price of silver and not silver itself. So there you go. Now, what I aim to do on this channel is to try to bring you the latest news, analysis, and information with regards to silver. So I hope you will consider subscribing to the channel and engaging in the comment section. And so I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.